The Biden regime is trying to, pull the wool over the eyes of the American people on inflation. And they're kind of using every tactic, every rhetorical strategy they have to do that. Now, let's remember when they say things like, we haven't had any inflation this month. Really what they mean is that if prices go up, let's just say 5% or 7% or 8% and stay there, they consider this to be inflation coming to an end. In other words, prices go up. They don't come back down to where they were before. They just don't go any higher. And so Biden thought that that let's have an inflation party. Let's have an inflation party because, after all, we've passed the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. And since we're calling it that, we're going to try to convince people that that is actually occurring. Inflation is coming down. And let's have a party and everybody's going to get the idea, wow, it must have come down. A, they've passed an Inflation Reduction Act to reduce inflation. And number two, they all look really happy and are smiling, so things must be going really well. James Taylor, the singer, was brought to sing Fire and Rain. Now, I'm kind of a fan of James Taylor, but I'm a fan of James Taylor like circa 1978. This idea of bringing on these, 90-year-old rock singers to, to perform with their hoarse voices is a whole different matter today. But what made the whole scene ridiculous is here you have the president, you've got the heads of Congress, you've got Pelosi, you've got Schumer. They're all patting themselves on the back, a job well done. Now, the funny thing of this was that while this was going on, and I actually remember seeing the chyron on CNN, CNN has a split screen. On the one side, they're showing, the celebration. And on the other side, they're showing the Dow Jones average plummeting. The Dow went down, 1276 in one day, 1,276 points. Now, why? Because the market, the people who watch the market realize that inflation is actually very, very bad. In fact, the extent of how bad it is camouflaged by the fact that Biden has been releasing oil from the strategic reserve, and oil prices have in fact gone down. Biden's been extravagantly boasting about this, and you have to say this is a point in his favor. By the way, not that gas prices have gone down to where they were. Gas prices have gone down about $1.30. They're still $1.30 higher than when Biden took office. So we're still paying quite a bit more for gas, but not as much as we were paying a month or so ago. But this gain, if you want to call it that, in other words, this benefit on the gas side, is more than canceled out by higher prices in other areas, what is sometimes by economists called core inflation. And so here we go. The overall rate of the consumer price index, this is measured on a yearly basis, not on a monthly basis, remains at 8.3%. Gas is up 25%, fuel oil 68%, electricity 15%, groceries 13%, eggs 39%, airline fares 33%. And all of this happening at a time when real hourly wages, meaning hourly wages as compared, inflation adjusted, are not only flat, they're going down slightly, about 2% down. So the point here isn't that we have runaway inflation, but what we have is high inflation that shows no sign of abating. Let's remember that the Federal Reserve has set as its goal, and in fact we have achieved this goal for much of the past 20 years, 2% inflation. 2% inflation is very healthy for a country. You don't actually want 0% inflation. 2 is good because the economy grows at about 2% per year. So that is a manageable rate of inflation. It does give the economy a little room to breathe. And that's the kind of inflation that that economists look for. But Here we are at 8.3%, a long way removed from 2, and very difficult to get back to 2. Now, one way to try to get in that direction, the Federal Reserve is like, we'll raise interest rates, and we'll raise interest rates some more. We'll raise interest rates some more. And that does, in fact, have the effect of slowly throttling inflation, but it comes at a high cost. What is the high cost? Higher interest rates, which make it harder to borrow money, harder for businesses to get access to capital, and also higher unemployment, because once you raise interest rates, this is sort of like putting the brakes. And you can put the brakes on inflation, but you cannot put the brakes on inflation without simultaneously putting the brakes on the economy. So bottom line is the market was expecting the inflation number to go down. And in fact, so were the Biden administration was saying, we expect it to go down. The market thought, well, maybe it will go down a little bit. But the fact that it hasn't gone down at all, and that the reductions in gas prices have been canceled out by increases in other areas, show us that Biden is running a very bad economy. And this is no cause whatsoever for having a party. It's no cause for celebration.